Captain Daniel Hayes had never liked the silence of the medical wing. On a starship as large as the Resolute, there were always voices, footsteps, or the hum of engines to remind him that he wasn't alone. But here, in this quiet corner, the only sound was the steady rhythm of the monitor beside his bed, and the occasional hiss of recycled air through the vents. He shifted slightly, wincing as pain shot through his side. His last mission hadn't gone as planned. An ambush by pirates had left him with a plasma burn that tore through armor and flesh alike. The medics had patched him up, but recovery was slow. For once in his career, Daniel was ordered to rest, confined to his private quarters in the medical section. It wasn't in his nature to lie still. He had fought through countless battles, negotiated treaties with alien envoys, and led crews into uncharted sectors. Rest felt like surrender, but he had no choice. His body demanded healing, even if his mind screamed for action. Daniel closed his eyes, trying to let the quiet guide him into sleep. That was when he heard it, soft footsteps, lighter than a human's, moving closer. He opened his eyes, expecting to see one of the medics. Instead, the sliding door to his quarters shifted open without warning. Standing in the doorway was not a medic. It was an alien. She was tall, slender, and moved with a grace that seemed almost unearthly. Her skin shimmered faintly, a pale silver that reflected the low lights of the room. Her large eyes glowed with faint blue luminescence, and her hair, if it could be called that, was a cascade of fine, thread-like tendrils that shifted as though moved by unseen currents. Daniel's first instinct was to reach for the emergency call panel beside his bed, but before he could move, the alien stepped inside and let the door seal shut behind her. "You," Daniel began, his voice rough. "Who authorized you to enter?" She tilted her head, studying him with a calm that was unnerving. Then, without a word, she began to undo the layered garments draped across her shoulders. The fabric slipped to the floor in smooth folds, leaving only a simple underlayer that clung to her form. Daniel froze, unsure of what he was witnessing. Before he could demand an explanation, she crossed the room with quiet confidence and lowered herself onto the bed. To his utter shock, she lay across his chest, resting her weight carefully so as not to disturb his injury. Daniel stiffened, every muscle in his body on edge. What are you doing?" The alien finally spoke, her voice soft, melodic, and yet strangely firm. "You are Captain Daniel Hayes, human, protector. I claim sanctuary in your honor." He blinked, confused. "Sanctuary? What are you talking about? You can't just walk into my room, throw your—" He stopped himself, realizing how absurd the situation was. "Explain yourself." She met his gaze, her eyes glowing faintly brighter. "My name is Aris of the Thalkiri. Among my people, to shed one's mantle before another and to lay upon them is the highest act of trust. It binds the protector and the seeker. I have chosen you." Daniel let out a sharp breath, his mind racing. He had heard rumors of Thalkiri customs, but only fragments, rituals no human had ever directly witnessed. He had assumed most of it was exaggerated hearsay, yet here she was performing it without hesitation. "This isn't exactly standard protocol," Daniel muttered, his hand hovering uncertainly in the air as though touching her might break some unspoken rule. "Why me?" Aris closed her eyes briefly, as if listening to something distant. "Because humanity is new to the stars, and yet you fight with honor. My people are threatened. The Zerath Dominion hunts us, seeks to erase us. If I place myself under your protection, then by our laws the humans are bound to my people. It is trust made flesh." Daniel stared at her in disbelief. This wasn't just a personal matter. This was politics. This was diplomacy of the highest stakes, wrapped in rituals he barely understood. "And you just decided I would accept this?" he asked slowly. "You did not refuse," she replied simply. Daniel almost laughed at the absurdity of it. He hadn't refused because he hadn't had the chance to process what was happening. But he could see something in her expression. Not arrogance, not manipulation, but a fragile hope hidden beneath her composed exterior. She was putting everything on this moment. "On him," he sighed, running a hand through his short-cropped hair. "You realize what this means? If I accept this, it could tie Earth into your war. My people may not be ready for that." Aris tilted her head again, her tendrils shifting softly like silver flames. "Your people will rise. I have seen it," her confidence startled him. He didn't know whether to call it prophecy or blind faith. Either way, it unsettled him in ways few things did. The weight of her against his chest wasn't heavy, but it carried a symbolic gravity. She wasn't here for comfort. She was here for survival, and now, like it or not, he was part of it. The door hissed open again, and this time Daniel's medic, Lieutenant Juno, entered. She froze mid-step, eyes widening at the sight before her. "Captain," she stammered. "What exactly is happening here?" Daniel pinched the bridge of his nose, groaning softly. "Believe me, Lieutenant, I'm still trying to figure that out myself." Eris turned her glowing eyes toward the medic. "Do not be alarmed. I am under his protection now." Juno gave Daniel a look that clearly said, "You'd better explain this later," then muttered, "I'll update the captain's file," before quickly leaving. As the door shut, Daniel let out a tired laugh. "Wonderful. Half the ship is going to hear about this by morning." Eris didn't move. "Let them. The bond must be known." He stared up at the ceiling, exhaling slowly. Somehow, in the span of minutes, his quiet night had turned into a diplomatic event that could change the course of humanity's future. Daniel Hayes, decorated officer of the United Earth Fleet, protector of his crew, negotiator of treaties, now apparently protector of a silver-skinned alien who had declared herself bound to him. And the strangest part, deep down a small part of him didn't want to push her away. Captain Daniel Hayes barely slept after that strange encounter. Every time he closed his eyes, he felt the presence of Eris across his chest, the way her silver-blue glow lit his quarters, and the soft but firm way she had declared herself under his protection. He wasn't a man who got confused easily. In battle, decisions were sharp and quick. In diplomacy, his instincts helped him read the room better than most. But this was something entirely different. An alien woman slipping into his room, performing a ritual he didn't fully understand, and binding herself to him without asking first. It wasn't something they taught at the academy. By morning, the whispers had already spread across the ship. Wherever Daniel walked, slowly since his wound still ached, he felt the eyes of his crew. Some looked at him with curiosity, some with admiration, and others with open skepticism. Lieutenant Juno caught him just outside the mess hall. "Captain, with respect, the crew's talking. They say the Thalkiri woman has claimed you." Daniel sighed. "Of course they are," Juno's brow furrowed. "Sir, if what she says is true, this could be dangerous. The Zerath Dominion doesn't take prisoners. If she's here, that means they'll come looking." "I know," Daniel said quietly. He rubbed the back of his neck. "But I couldn't exactly throw her out, could I?" Juno hesitated, then smirked. "No, sir. You couldn't. That wouldn't be very human of you." Daniel rolled his eyes and stepped into the mess hall. Eris was already there, sitting with perfect posture at a table near the window. The stars streaked by outside, bright trails of light as the Resolute glided through warp. She drew attention wherever she went, not only because of her alien features, but because she radiated calm authority. Even without saying a word, she looked like she belonged at the center of the room. When Daniel approached, she stood and bowed slightly, another gesture that was unfamiliar but respectful. "Captain Hayes," she said softly. "May I sit with you?" He gave a half smile. "I think the whole ship expects us to, don't you?" They sat. Daniel tried to focus on his breakfast, but Eris watched him closely, her glowing eyes calm and steady. Finally, he asked, "Why me? Out of every human you could have chosen, why not our ambassador or the Admiralty or even the Council back on Earth? Why walk into my room in the middle of the night?" Eris folded her hands together. "Because it must be one who has seen both battle and mercy. You lead your people with strength, but you protect them with heart. The bond is not with Earth's rulers, it is with you. And through you, with your kind." Daniel frowned. "That's a lot to put on one man." "You underestimate yourself," Eris replied gently. "Your people rise quickly, faster than any we have known. You do not wait centuries to learn. You adapt, you grow. You fight with everything, even when the odds are impossible. That is why I chose you." Daniel leaned back, letting her words sink in. He wasn't used to being spoken of like that. Admirals praised his tactics, politicians admired his results, but this was different. She was speaking of humanity itself, through him. "You keep saying your people are threatened," he said after a pause. "Tell me more about the Zerath Dominion." Her expression darkened, the calm glow of her eyes dimming slightly. "They are conquerors. For them, mercy is weakness and difference is danger. They take worlds, strip them of life, and leave only silence. The Thalkiri stood against them once. We lost half our worlds. Our fleets are scattered. Our leaders, desperate. Some seek alliances, others believe surrender will spare us. I chose another path. I chose you. Daniel felt a cold weight settle in his chest. Humanity had heard of the Zirath, but only in scattered intelligence reports. If what she said was true, they were far more dangerous than the rumors suggested. So you think if I protect you, humanity will be drawn into this war, Daniel said. Eris met his eyes. Not drawn, chosen. The galaxy underestimates your people. They do not see you coming. I believe the Zirath will. Daniel gave a low chuckle, though it held no humor. You're putting a lot of faith in a species that's barely left its solar system. Eris smiled faintly. Faith is only tested in the unknown. Over the next few days, life aboard the Resolute grew more complicated. Eris moved freely among the crew, her presence a constant reminder of the strange bond between her and Daniel. Some of the younger officers treated her like a celebrity, asking endless questions about her world. Others remained cautious, afraid her presence was a ticking bomb waiting to go off. Daniel tried to carry on with his duties, but it wasn't easy. Every briefing, every tactical review, every meal, Eris was there. Not clingy, not demanding, but present. Always calm, always watchful, as though she were measuring the humans she now lived among. Late one evening, Daniel found her in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of the ship's engines. You've caused quite a stir, Daniel said, walking up beside her. Eris didn't turn. Your crew is strong. They wonder if they are enough. And are they? Daniel asked. She glanced at him, her eyes glowing faintly. With you, yes. He exhaled slowly, running a hand through his hair. You make it sound so simple. For us it is. Once the bond is made, there is no doubt. Only path. Daniel studied her profile in the starlight. She looked unshakable, yet he remembered the faint tremor in her voice when she had spoken of her people's suffering. She wasn't just calm, she was carrying fear, hiding it beneath ritual and dignity. You're not just here for politics, are you? Daniel said quietly. Eris finally turned to him fully. For the first time, her composure softened. No, I am here because I am afraid. The Zirath will come for me, and if I die, my people lose hope. But if I live, if the humans stand with us, then maybe we have a chance. Daniel nodded slowly. It wasn't just ritual anymore. She had chosen him not just as a protector of diplomacy, but as a protector of her very life. I can't promise what the Earth Council will say, he admitted, but I can promise this. As long as you're on my ship, I'll keep you safe. Her expression softened and she gave the faintest bow of her head. That is all I ask. The promise was tested sooner than Daniel expected. 2 days later, alarms blared across the Resolute. The ship dropped out of warp near a contested sector, and sensors lit up with red warnings. A small fleet of Zirath ships was waiting, sleek black vessels bristling with weaponry. They must have tracked her, Juno muttered from her console. Daniel snapped into command mode, pain forgotten. Battle stations. Raise shields. On the main screen, the enemy ships moved like predators circling prey. A voice crackled through the comm, sharp and cold. Thalkiri fugitive detected aboard human vessel. Surrender her, and you may leave unharmed. The bridge crew turned to Daniel, waiting for his response. Slowly he stood. His voice was steady, strong. This is Captain Daniel Hayes of the United Earth Fleet. She is under my protection. If you want her, you'll have to come through me. Eris stood silently beside him, her glowing eyes fixed on the enemy ships. For the first time since arriving, she reached out and rested her hand lightly on his arm. Not ritual, not formality, but gratitude. The crew straightened at their stations. Whatever doubts they had were gone. Their captain had spoken and they would stand with him. The Zirath ships moved closer. Battle was inevitable. And in that moment, Daniel realized the weight of the choice he had made. Humanity wasn't just stepping into another skirmish. They were stepping into history, and he, wounded or not, was at the center of it. The bridge of the Resolute shook as the first wave of fire struck its shields. The Zirath Dominion wasted no time. Their black, sharp-edged warships unleashed a storm of energy blasts that painted the void with streaks of crimson light. Shields holding, but only at 80%, shouted Lieutenant Juno, her hands flying across the console. Return fire, Captain Daniel Hayes ordered, his voice calm but sharp. Target their lead ship. Let them know we won't run. The Resolute answered with a volley of its own. turrets spinning, rail cannons firing bolts of energy that tore through the dark space. One of the Zerath ships veered off course, shields flaring as they absorbed the blow. Eris stood near Daniel, her eyes glowing brighter than usual. She said nothing, but he could feel her presence like a steady anchor. To the crew, her calm was strange, maybe even unnerving, but to Daniel it was something else. It was trust, silent but heavy. Multiple enemy fighters breaking formation, Juno reported. They're circling us. Daniel's jaw tightened. The Zerath weren't just here to scare them. They wanted Eris, and they were willing to crush the Resolute to get her. Helm, evasive maneuvers. Engineering, push power to rear shields. He turned to Eris. If you've got any tricks that can help us, now would be a good time. Her gaze flicked toward the screen, watching the swarming fighters. They fight without honor. But they are predictable. Their formation is like a net. If you break through at the lower edge, they will not expect it. Daniel nodded. Helm dive. Hard and fast. Bring us under their net. The Resolute tilted sharply, engines roaring as it dove beneath the encircling fighters. Enemy blasts streaked overhead, missing their mark. The ship surged forward, breaking through just as Eris had predicted. Clear path, Captain, Helm reported. Then take it, Daniel said. For a brief moment, the crew cheered as the Resolute punched through, but the celebration ended when another alarm shrieked. Boarding pods incoming, Juno cried. The screen lit up with multiple signals. Zerath pods, small but deadly, launched directly toward the Resolute. Before the ship could destroy them, several slammed into the hull. They're breaching, shouted a crewman. Daniel's heart pounded. Security teams to the docking points. All hands prepare to repel boarders. But the next impact was different. A blast rocked the ship so hard Daniel was thrown against his chair. Sparks rained from a nearby console. Critical hit near reactor bay, Juno shouted. Hull breach on decks 4 through 6. Emergency seals holding, but we've lost power in that section. Daniel gritted his teeth. The Resolute was strong, but the Zerath weren't pulling punches. If this fight dragged on, his ship wouldn't last. Captain, another officer cried. They're locking onto us with a tractor beam. The main screen showed the lead Zerath ship extending a glowing tether of energy. The Resolute shuddered, engines straining against the pull. Daniel knew they couldn't win this engagement. Not like this. He had to think fast. Prepare the escape pods, he ordered. Non-essential crew first. We can't risk the whole ship. Sir, what about you? Juno asked. Daniel's eyes flicked to Eris, who stood silently at his side. I'll buy us time. Get them out. Eris's glowing eyes met his, and she gave a single nod, as if she had expected this all along. Minutes later, chaos filled the lower decks as escape pods launched, streaking away from the straining ship. Daniel guided Eris toward one of the remaining pods. Captain, wait, Juno called after him. You're not going alone, are you? Daniel gave her a faint smile. You've got the ship, Lieutenant. Keep her alive. Juno looked like she wanted to argue, but the pod's door sealed shut before she could speak. The pod detached with a shudder, flung into the void just as the Resolute was dragged back by the Zerath tractor beam. Inside, only Daniel and Eris sat in the cramped space, the small cabin lit by faint emergency lights. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence was broken only by the distant hum of the pod's engine. Daniel finally exhaled. Not exactly how I planned my day. Eris tilted her head, her expression calm despite the danger. You saved your crew. That is what matters. Daniel gave a humorless chuckle. We're still alive for now. But this pod won't outrun them for long. Eris placed her hand against the pod's wall, her tendrils shifting faintly. The Zerath will search for us. But they underestimate human resilience. We will survive. Daniel studied her for a moment, then shook his head. You sound awfully sure of that. Her eyes met his. Because you are my protector, and I believe in you. Those words, simple as they were, settled heavy on his chest. It wasn't just ritual anymore. She truly trusted him. Hours passed as the pod drifted through dark space. Supplies were limited. 2 oxygen masks, a week's worth of rations, and a small power core. The temperature dropped steadily as the pod conserved energy. Daniel shivered, wrapping his jacket tighter around himself. Eris, however, seemed unbothered, her silver skin glowing faintly like a lantern in the dark. You're cold, she said softly. I'll manage, Daniel muttered. Without hesitation, Eris shifted closer, then lay across his chest just as she had on that first night. Her warmth spread through him, steady and surprising. Daniel stiffened at first, but then let out a slow breath. "This is part of your ritual again, isn't it?" "Yes," she whispered. "But not only ritual. You saved me when you did not have to. Now I keep you warm." Daniel closed his eyes, the weight of exhaustion catching up to him. "You're a strange one, Eris." Her soft reply came like a lullaby. "And you, human, are braver than you know." The next day, a violent jolt woke Daniel. The pod shuddered as it was caught in a planet's gravity well. "We're being pulled in," he muttered, checking the failing console. "Atmosphere ahead." "Brace yourself!" The pod roared as it entered the atmosphere of a barren, rocky planet. Fire streaked across the view screen as it plummeted faster and faster. Daniel gripped the controls, trying to steady the descent. But the pod shook violently. With a thunderous crash, the pod slammed into the ground, metal screeching as it tore across rocky terrain before finally grinding to a halt. Smoke filled the cabin. Daniel coughed, pushing open the hatch. He stumbled out into the alien landscape, a desert of jagged stones and endless red sky. Eris followed, steady despite the rough landing. She looked around, her tendrils shifting faintly in the dry wind. "This world is harsh, but we are alive." Daniel scanned the horizon. No ships, no signs of life. Just barren wasteland. He sighed. "Alive, yeah, but stranded." Eris stepped closer, her glowing eyes unwavering. "Then we survived together." Daniel gave a short laugh. "That seems to be the theme lately." The days that followed were a test of endurance. The planet's heat during the day was blistering, its nights freezing cold. Daniel rationed their supplies carefully while Eris showed surprising resilience, enduring the extremes without complaint. At night, when the cold cut deep, she once again lay across his chest, her glow faint but steady in the dark. This time Daniel didn't stiffen. He simply accepted it. Survival demanded trust, and trust was something they now shared fully. They built a makeshift shelter from the wreckage of the pod. Daniel scavenged wires, panels, and scraps of metal, fashioning crude traps in case hostile creatures lurked nearby. Eris assisted him, showing an unexpected knack for adapting to his improvised human methods. "You make weapons from broken things," she said one evening. Watching him twist wires into a trip line, Daniel smirked. "That's what humans do. We take what's left and make it work." Eris gave him a long look. "Perhaps that is why you will defeat the Zerath. They destroy, but you rebuild." Her words stayed with him long into the night. On the fourth day, the distant roar of engines shook the sky. Daniel rushed out of the shelter, scanning the horizon. Black ships, Zerath scouts, descended like vultures. "They found us," he said grimly. Eris stepped beside him, her glowing eyes fierce. "Then we fight." Daniel tightened the grip on his makeshift spear of sharpened metal. "We won't win in open combat, but maybe we don't have to." Eris tilted her head. "A trap?" Daniel smirked. "A human specialty." Together they lured the Zerath scouts toward the wreckage, where Daniel's traps waited. Wires strung between jagged rocks, hidden spikes from the pod's remains, and a jury-rigged power cell primed to overload. The first Zerath soldier snarled as he charged forward, only to trip the wire and be flung into the spikes. Another stumbled into the overloaded power cell, a burst of energy knocking two more flat. Daniel fought fiercely, his injured side screaming in pain, but he refused to fall. Eris fought beside him with surprising skill, her movements graceful and sharp. By the time the smoke cleared, the ground was littered with defeated Zerath scouts. The survivors fled, their ships retreating into the red sky. Breathing hard, Daniel leaned against a rock. "That'll make them think twice." Eris stepped beside him, her hand resting gently on his shoulder. "You see? You make hope from nothing. That is why I chose you." Daniel looked at her glowing eyes, and for the first time he didn't doubt her words. Together, stranded on a barren world, they had survived, and Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The barren planet had seemed empty at first, but Daniel and Eris quickly realized they were not alone. The Zerath Dominion was relentless. Even after their first encounter with the scouts, the enemy had regrouped, sending larger, faster vessels to hunt them down. One night, as the red sun dipped below jagged rocks, a shadow fell across their makeshift shelter. Before Daniel could react, a powerful beam of energy struck the ground near them. The force threw him against a rock, and the world went white. When he came to, the air was thick and metallic, the scent of ozone strong in his lungs. He tried to move but realized he was restrained by magnetic cuffs, their pull strong enough to pin him to a polished metal floor. Around him, other humans and Thalkiri captives were similarly restrained. Eris sat beside him. Her glow dimmed, but her eyes still held that calm fire. "It seems the Zirath have finally decided to test us," she said softly. Daniel ground his teeth. "Test? This is more like torture." A deep, resonant voice filled the chamber. "So the human Captain Hayes survives once again. You have proved resourceful. But resourcefulness without submission is meaningless." From the shadows stepped a Zirath commander, tall, armored, and alien in every way. His skin was dark and chitinous, eyes sharp and cold. "You humans are different," he continued. "Not weak, but reckless. Your species is irritatingly stubborn." Daniel forced himself to sit upright, meeting the commander's gaze. "If you think fear will make us surrender, you're wrong. Humans fight, even against impossible odds." The Zirath commander's lips curled into what could almost be called a smirk. "Then let us test your stubbornness." The next hours were a blur of interrogation and confinement. The Zirath asked questions of both Daniel and Eris, attempting to extract strategic information. They threatened, they lied, and they showcased images of destroyed worlds to intimidate. But Daniel remained silent, carefully answering only what would not compromise human security. He noticed that Eris remained calm beside him, her glowing eyes steady, but he could see the tension in her posture. Even she was affected by this captivity. "Captain," Eris whispered during a break in the questioning, "you must be careful. The Zirath are intelligent and cruel. One wrong move—" "I know," Daniel replied. "And I know we can't wait for rescue. We need a plan." He began quietly observing their surroundings. The room's walls were smooth, almost seamless, but there were faint seams at the corners. Magnetic clamps held their restraints, but Daniel noted the way the magnetic field pulsed in intervals. "Timing could be everything," he whispered to Eris. "Follow my lead. When I signal, move to the left corner. I think I can disable the magnetic clamps if we hit the pulses at the right moment." Eris nodded, her trust in him unwavering. That trust was their secret weapon. The first attempt to escape came the following day. The Zirath guards entered for morning inspection. At the perfect moment, Daniel pressed his palm to the pulse plate, sending a low-frequency surge through the magnetic field. The cuffs released with a soft click. "Now," he whispered to Eris. Together they moved silently through the chamber, avoiding the patrolling guards. Daniel used a piece of broken metal to wedge open a maintenance hatch he had noticed earlier. One by one, they slipped inside. The corridor beyond was dimly lit, walls humming with energy conduits. Daniel's mind raced. He had to keep calm, keep thinking like a human engineer, not just a soldier. They had to turn this prison into their advantage. "See that control panel?" he whispered to Eris. "I think I can trigger a small overload. It might distract them long enough for us to escape the complex." Eris tilted her head. "I trust your judgment, human." Together, they worked quietly. Daniel bypassed the security lock while Eris monitored the patrol patterns. The first attempt was tense. A single guard turned the corner and Daniel froze. Eris placed a calming hand on his arm, signaling patience. When the guard moved past, they continued. Finally, with a spark and hiss, the control panel overloaded, sending sparks flying down the corridor. Red warning lights flashed as alarms blared. "Time to move," Daniel said. They ran, weaving through corridors, dodging security teams and avoiding energy barriers. Daniel's mind calculated the safest path, the quickest turns, the areas where guards were least likely to see them. Eris followed, silent but effective, anticipating dangers before Daniel even saw them. By the time they reached the hangar, the Zirath were in full alert. Ships began to lift off, preparing to pursue. "There!" Daniel shouted. 2 unarmed shuttles. "We can use them." Eris leapt into one, and Daniel followed, quickly engaging the launch sequence. The shuttle lifted off just as the hangar doors sealed behind them. The enemy's larger vessels roared in pursuit, energy blasts raining toward them. Daniel gritted his teeth. "We can't outrun them. We'll have to outsmart them." Eris's glowing eyes met his. "Then we fight with what humans have that they do not. Ingenuity." Daniel smiled faintly. Humans had always survived because of their ability to think outside the box. He piloted the shuttle skillfully, dodging blasts, weaving through the asteroid field near the planet's orbit. Using debris from the broken planet and hidden asteroids, Daniel managed to hide the shuttle temporarily, confusing the Zerath sensors. The enemy ships passed, searching blindly. "Good thinking," Eris said quietly. "Your people. You adapt in ways the galaxy cannot predict." Daniel nodded. "And that's why we survive." They landed on a small moon nearby, a barren rock with jagged cliffs and shadowed valleys. Daniel guided the shuttle to a hidden crevice away from sight. "We'll rest here," he said, "but we can't stay long. They'll track us eventually." Eris stepped beside him, her tendrils shimmering faintly. "Your species. It is unlike any other. Humans endure, even when hope seems lost. That is why I trusted you." Daniel looked at her, realizing that their bond had deepened beyond ritual or survival. She trusted him fully. He trusted her fully. And that mutual trust was stronger than any chains, stronger than any prison, stronger than any enemy. The moon was cold at night, its winds howling across rocky valleys. Daniel wrapped himself in the remaining thermal blankets, glancing at Eris. She lay close, her glow a soft light against the dark, and for the first time since capture, he felt a measure of peace. "We survived," Daniel said quietly. "Yes," Eris replied, "but survival is not enough. We must prevail. Humanity must show the galaxy that you are not weak." Daniel nodded. He had seen the fear in the Zerath, the arrogance, the brutality, and now he had seen what humans were capable of: strategy, courage, and adaptability. As the night passed, Daniel reviewed every moment of their escape, planning their next move. He studied the Zerath patrol patterns, the locations of supply caches, and potential routes for returning to the Resolute. Eris watched him, silent but attentive. She did not interfere. She had come to understand that humans had a unique way of thinking, a combination of instinct and improvisation that no alien could fully predict. Daniel felt a surge of pride, not personal pride, but pride in humanity. They were underestimated, yes, feared, yes, but when pushed to the brink, humans adapted, survived, and overcame, and he would prove it to the Zerath. The next day, Daniel and Eris set out across the moon's jagged terrain. They traveled cautiously, avoiding obvious patrols. Using rocks and shadows as cover, they moved toward a canyon where Daniel believed he could find a hidden communications relay. "This relay might allow us to contact the Resolute," he explained. "If we can warn them, we might be able to lead a counterattack or rescue mission." Eris nodded. "Then we move quickly. The Zerath will not forgive delay." They climbed over jagged rocks, using every ounce of their skill to navigate treacherous terrain. Twice they had to hide under boulders as patrol ships passed overhead. Twice Daniel's ingenuity allowed them to escape narrowly, using loose rocks to trigger alarms in empty corridors, sending guards running the wrong way. Finally, they reached the canyon, where the relay tower stood, a metallic structure half buried in rock, humming faintly with residual power. "Stay close," Daniel whispered. "If this works, we might turn the tide." As he began configuring the relay, Eris scanned the horizon, her glowing eyes piercing the shadows. "They are coming," she warned. Daniel's jaw tightened. He worked faster, rerouting power, establishing a secure link. The Zerath scouts were closing, but he did not panic. Human ingenuity, he reminded himself, always finds a way. With a final adjustment, the relay sparked to life. A message beamed to the Resolute: "We are alive." Coordinates transmitted. "Prepare countermeasures." Eris stepped beside him, placing a reassuring hand on his arm. "Your species. It does not yield. That is why we endure." Daniel looked at her, and for the first time he allowed himself a small, proud smile. "Then let's make sure the Zerath know exactly who they're dealing with." Together, standing on the barren moon, human and Thalkiri, they prepared for the next stage of the battle. A battle that would test humanity's resilience, courage, and ingenuity in ways no one had ever imagined. The Resolute had received Daniel's signal. The message, brief but precise, outlined the location of the Zerath outpost on the barren moon. Commander Hayes' report emphasized one thing above all: humans adapt. Humans survive. Humans fight even when the odds seem impossible. Within hours, the Resolute had returned, accompanied by 2 support ships, cutting through the void with the precision and speed of a military strike. Daniel and Eris watched from the shuttle, hidden in the canyon as the reinforcements arrived. The Zerath had fortified their position, but they had underestimated the ingenuity and determination of the humans. "This is it," Daniel said, tightening his grip on the shuttle's control panel. "If we do this right, we hit them hard and fast. And we leave nothing behind for them to recover." Eris's glowing eyes studied him. "I trust your plan. Humanity has proven its strength. Let us show the Zerath that they underestimated you." The first phase was reconnaissance. Daniel climbed to a high ridge, binoculars in hand, observing the Zerath forces. There were 20 fighters patrolling the perimeter, energy turrets stationed at key choke points, and a central command tower bristling with defenses. Direct assault would be suicide, but Daniel had never been one to do things the simple way. "We can't hit them head-on," he muttered. "We need a distraction." Eris stepped closer. "I can create one. The Thalkiri have abilities with energy fields. I can overload one section of their turrets. It won't destroy them, but it will give you a gap." Daniel studied her. "That could work. You'll be in danger." "I am already counted as a target," Eris replied calmly, "and your species has shown me the meaning of courage. Let me help?" As night fell over the barren moon, Daniel's team moved into position. Engineers and security personnel adjusted their energy shields, while Daniel and Eris prepared the shuttle for a risky aerial strike. Eris extended her hands, energy crackling faintly around her fingers. "When I signal, create chaos among the turrets. Then we move." Daniel nodded, feeling the adrenaline spike. The humans around him were tense but focused, ready to follow his lead. This was the moment where human ingenuity, courage, and trust in each other would make the difference. "Ready," he whispered. Eris's glow flared, sending pulses of energy toward the turret array. Sparks flew. Alarms blared, and several turrets shut down temporarily. Daniel seized the moment, firing the shuttle's thrusters to rise into the air. They dove through the smoke and sparks, dodging energy blasts and enemy fighters. Daniel guided the shuttle with expert precision, weaving between rocky outcrops, leading the small strike team straight into the heart of the Zerath outpost. The battle was chaotic. Humans leapt from the shuttle, combining precision weaponry with quick improvisation. Daniel had designed traps using energy cables, broken metal, and debris from the previous battles. Every step, every move used their environment. Humans adapted where the Zerath relied on brute force. Eris fought alongside him, her glowing tendrils striking at enemy soldiers, disarming and disabling them without unnecessary harm. Together they moved as one, human and Thalkiri, strategist and guardian perfectly synchronized. The central tower loomed ahead, defended by the strongest Zerath soldiers. Daniel glanced at Eris. "Ready?" Her eyes glowed brighter. "Always." Using a combination of human ingenuity and Thalkiri energy manipulation, they created a diversion, smoke, energy bursts, and cleverly rigged tripwires that sent enemies stumbling into each other. In the confusion, Daniel led the final push into the command tower. Inside, the Zerath commander waited, calm and composed. "So the human returns. I expected cunning, but not this." Daniel raised his weapon. "You underestimated us. Humanity adapts. Humanity survives. Humanity fights," the commander snarled, advancing with deadly precision. Daniel ducked and rolled, avoiding a strike that would have ended him. He used the environment, leveraging metal beams, support panels, and improvised explosives to create traps that slowed the commander's movements. Eris struck from behind, energy pulses hitting key control panels. Sparks and smoke filled the tower. The commander faltered, frustrated and enraged. Daniel pressed forward, precise and careful, until the Zerath commander finally yielded, recognizing the futility of continued combat. "You survived," the Zerath said, voice sharp but acknowledging. "Humans are not weak." Daniel, breathing heavily, lowered his weapon. "We are not weak, and neither is the alliance we protect." Eris stepped beside him, her glow illuminating the tower. "Let this be known across the stars. Humanity fights with strength and with heart." Outside, the remaining Zerath forces retreated, their morale shattered by the humans' ingenuity and courage. Daniel looked across the battlefield. His crew was exhausted, injured, but alive, and they had proved something important. Humans could face impossible odds and not only survive but prevail. "Captain Hayes," Juno said, approaching him. "Your plan worked. Everyone's alive." "The Zerath. They're withdrawing." Daniel nodded, scanning the horizon. "We survived because we adapted. We survived because we trusted each other, and we survived because humanity never gives up. Eris stepped closer, placing her hand lightly on Daniel's shoulder. You have shown me the meaning of protection, and in doing so you have shown the galaxy the power of your species. Daniel allowed himself a small smile. We couldn't have done it without you. Eris's glow dimmed slightly, a soft light that reflected warmth and respect. Perhaps, but I'm proud to fight beside you, human, and I am proud to be under your protection. The crew regrouped aboard the Resolute, repairing damages and treating injuries. Daniel addressed them in the mess hall, standing tall despite his own wounds. Today we showed the galaxy what humans can do. We faced a superior enemy, adapted and survived. But more than that, we showed them that humanity fights not just with weapons but with ingenuity, courage and heart. Every one of you made this victory possible. The crew cheered, their spirits high. Even in the darkest moments, humans had prevailed. Even in the face of terror, they had adapted. Even when threatened, they had survived and thrived. Eris stood at the edge of the room, her glow illuminating the corner, and watched the humans celebrate. She had seen many species across the stars, but none like this. The determination, the innovation, the resilience, it was unlike anything she had known, and she had witnessed it firsthand. Daniel caught her gaze across the room, and for a moment, there was a silent understanding between them. The bond forged in the quiet of his quarters, strengthened in the barren moonscape, and tested in the heat of battle was now unbreakable. We did it, Daniel whispered as they walked to the observation deck. Yes, Eris replied softly, and this is only the beginning. Humanity will rise, and the galaxy will remember this day. Outside, the stars stretched infinitely, a tapestry of possibilities. The Zerath Dominion had been tested, and they had learned that humans were not to be underestimated. Daniel gazed at the distant nebulae, thinking of all the worlds humanity could protect, all the alliances they could build, and all the challenges they could face. The galaxy was wide, dangerous, and unpredictable, but so were humans. And we will face them, he said quietly. Together, Eris's glowing eyes reflected the stars. Together, protector of spirit, Daniel smiled. He had begun this journey alone, injured and uncertain. Now he stood at the center of a story that would define humanity's place among the stars. And he knew one thing for certain. Humanity would not just survive, it would thrive no matter the challenge, no matter the enemy, no matter the odds. Because humans adapted. Humans endured. Humans fought, and they never gave up.